She was about to walk out of the wedding hall alone, but the moment he stopped her and whispered, "Maybe it's fate we met again," everything changed. This is a heart-touching love story of second chances, fate, and a dance that rewrote the past. If you love emotional and romantic stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell, so you never miss the next one. The music swelled, violins filling the wedding hall as couples spun gracefully across the polished dance floor. Emily stood at the edge, clutching her champagne glass a little too tightly, her smile practiced but empty. She was happy for her cousin, truly, but the reception only reminded her of how alone she felt. She had tried to leave discreetly, slipping toward the exit with her shawl wrapped around her shoulders. But just as she reached for the door, a familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. Emily. Her breath caught. Slowly, she turned. Daniel. Time seemed to rewind and freeze all at once. He stood a few feet away, his dark suit fitting him far too well, his tie slightly askew as if he had tugged at it in nervousness. His hair was shorter now, but those eyes, the same deep brown eyes that once held all her secrets, locked onto hers with something between shock and wonder. Her heart thudded painfully. She hadn't seen him in 6 years. 6 years of carefully built walls, of convincing herself she was fine without him, of swallowing the ache whenever a memory slipped through. And yet, here he was. Daniel, she breathed, her voice barely audible. He took a step closer, hesitation flickering in his movements. "I didn't know you'd be here. It's my cousin's wedding," she said, her fingers tightening on her glass. She prayed her voice sounded steady. He nodded, as if searching for words. Then, with a faint, almost disbelieving smile, he said, "Maybe it's fate we met again." Something inside her cracked. Fate, the word felt dangerous. Before she could respond, the band shifted into a slower melody. Couples were moving toward the floor again, and somehow Daniel's hand was outstretched to her, an unspoken invitation. Her instincts screamed to run, but her heart, traitorous and wild, whispered something else. She placed her hand in his. The dance ended, but neither of them moved. The applause from the crowd felt far away, as though muffled by water. Daniel's hand lingered on hers, his thumb brushing lightly against her knuckles, as if afraid she might vanish if he let go. Emily's chest ached. The music might have stopped, but her heart hadn't gotten the message. She needed air. "Do you want to step outside?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Daniel's expression softened, and he nodded. "Yeah, let's." They slipped out through the glass doors, leaving the glow of the reception behind. The cool night air wrapped around them, carrying the faint scent of roses from the garden. String lights traced the path, casting a warm glow on the gravel walkway. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the chirp of crickets. Then Daniel exhaled. "I can't believe it's been 6 years. 6 years, 3 months, Emily whispered before she could stop herself. She cursed inwardly. Why had she kept count? His brows lifted slightly, but he didn't tease her. Instead, he asked quietly, "Why did you leave, Em?" The nickname cracked something inside her. No one called her that anymore. She looked away, her fingers gripping the edge of her shawl. "You know why. I thought I did," he said softly, stepping closer. "But now, I'm not sure." Memories surged unbidden. 6 years earlier, Emily had been 21, a girl with big dreams and a restless heart. She and Daniel had grown up 2 streets apart, best friends since childhood. He was steady, reliable, the boy who carried her books and listened to her rants about life. Somewhere between high school and college, friendship had blurred into something deeper. They never spoke it aloud, but it was there, in the way his hand lingered when he brushed her hair from her face, in the way she always sat next to him at bonfires, in the way their eyes found each other across crowded rooms. But Emily's world had been shifting. Her father had passed away suddenly during her sophomore year, leaving her family drowning in bills. Her mother leaned on her for strength, but Emily felt like she was suffocating. When she got the acceptance letter for a graduate program in another city, along with a job opportunity that could actually pay the debts, it had felt like a lifeline. Only one problem: leaving meant leaving Daniel. She had gone to him that night, her suitcase already half packed. He had been at the piano in his parents' living room, playing softly, the way he always did when he was thinking. "Tell me not to go," she had whispered, tears burning her eyes. Daniel had looked at her, silent for too long. Then he shook his head. "I can't be the reason you give up your future." So she had left, and neither of them had reached out again. Now, standing in the wedding garden, Emily swallowed hard. "I had to leave, Daniel. I didn't have a choice." I know, he said, voice low. I told myself the same thing for years. But I still wondered, if I'd just asked you to stay, would you have? Her throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to protect herself. But the truth spilled out anyway. Yes. Silence crashed between them, heavy and raw. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, as if steadying himself. When he opened them again, there was something fierce in his gaze. Then I made the biggest mistake of my life. Emily's breath caught, because deep down, she had always feared the same. They sat on a stone bench beneath the glowing string lights. The distance between them was small, but the years felt like a canyon. What about you? Emily asked finally, her voice unsteady. What's your life been like? Daniel leaned back, looking up at the night sky. Busy. Music gigs, teaching at the university, helping out my folks. He smiled faintly. It's fine, but it never felt right without you in it. Her heart clenched. And you? He asked, turning his gaze back to her. Emily hesitated. I worked, paid off the debts, got promoted, built a life that looks good on paper. She let out a humorless laugh. But most nights, it felt like I was just waiting. Daniel tilted his head. Waiting for what? Her eyes met his. I don't know. Maybe this. The words hung in the air between them, electric and terrifying. For the first time in years, Emily felt like the ground beneath her wasn't so steady. And yet, for the first time in years, she didn't feel so alone. Later, as the night deepened, they found themselves wandering the quiet garden paths. Lanterns flickered, casting moving shadows. Daniel spoke of little things, his students, his late-night gigs, while Emily shared fragments of her work life. But beneath the words lay tension, and spoken questions neither dared to voice. Finally, Daniel stopped walking. He said softly, do you ever wonder, what if? She knew exactly what he meant. Every day, their eyes met, heavy with all they hadn't said. He stopped himself, shaking his head as if it was too much. But she already knew, and her heart screamed with both joy and fear. Before either of them could say more, a voice broke the moment. There you are. Emily turned to see Claire, one of the bridesmaids, approaching with a bright smile. She slipped her arm around Daniel's casually, familiarity in the gesture that made Emily's stomach twist. There you are, Claire repeated, glancing between them. We were wondering where you disappeared to. Emily forced a polite smile, but her chest felt hollow. She mumbled something about needing to get back inside and walked away quickly, her eyes stinging. Daniel called after her, but she didn't stop. Emily's heels echoed sharply against the cobblestone as she marched back toward the glow of the reception hall. Her chest was tight, her vision blurring. She could still hear Claire's voice in her ears, see her hand on Daniel's arm. Stupid, she told herself. She should have known better. People didn't just wait around for 6 years. Of course he'd moved on. Emily. The sound of his voice cut through her thoughts, urgent and rough. She didn't slow down. Emily, please, stop. His footsteps caught up to hers, and before she could push the door open, his hand closed gently but firmly around her wrist. She froze. The warmth of his touch shot through her like lightning, but she refused to turn. Let me go, Daniel. Not until you hear me out, he said, his voice low but steady. Her throat tightened. There's nothing left to say. She's beautiful, she knows my name. She knows your name because I've talked about you, Daniel interrupted. That made her turn, wide-eyed. What? He stepped closer, still holding her wrist but softer now, like he was afraid she'd bolt. Claire is just a friend. Nothing more. She knew about you because I never shut up about you. She knows what you meant to me, what you still mean to me. Emily's breath caught. Daniel, I never moved on, he said, his voice cracking with the weight of it. God knows I tried. I went on dates, I met good people, but none of them were you. Every time, I'd compare them to you, and it was never fair to them, because no one else stood a chance. Her defenses wavered, but fear still clung tight. You don't know me anymore. 6 years is a long time. People change. Then let me know you again, he said fiercely. Let me learn who you are now. Because whatever's changed, I know the core of you hasn't. And that's the part one love. Her eyes stung. She tried to blink away the tears, but one slipped free. Daniel caught it gently with his thumb, his touch tender. You don't get it, she whispered, broken. I built my whole life around not needing you. Around proving I could stand on my own. And now you show up and, her voice cracked. And I don't know if I can survive opening that door again. Daniel cupped her face, his forehead resting against hers. Then let me stand with you this time. Let me prove it's not about needing each other, it's about choosing each other. Every day, the rawness in his voice undid her. He wasn't asking out of desperation. He was offering, steady and sure. Emily, he whispered, his breath warm against her lips, don't walk away again. Not when fate just gave us this second chance. Her heart hammered, she wanted to believe. God, she wanted to. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to admit the truth, she had never stopped loving him either. She closed the distance and kissed him. It wasn't the cautious brush of lips she'd once imagined. It was fierce, trembling, years of longing and regret spilling out all at once. His hand slid to the back of her neck, holding her like she might vanish, while hers gripped his jacket as if anchoring herself to him. When they finally broke apart, breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers again. That's all I needed to know, he murmured. Emily let out a shaky laugh, half a sob. You always did have a way of making things feel simple. Because sometimes they are, he said. It's just us. That's all it ever needed to be. For the first time all night, she let herself smile, real, unguarded. So, where do we go from here? His answering grin was boyish, hopeful. How about we start with finishing this wedding together? Then, tomorrow, maybe coffee. Then the day after, dinner. And the day after that, whatever you want. One step at a time. Her chest loosened. For once, that didn't sound terrifying. It sounded right. She nodded. One step at a time. They walked back into the reception hand in hand. Heads turned, whispers rippled, but Emily didn't care. She felt lighter than she had in years. When the bride caught sight of them, her eyes lit up. She mouthed finally before being swept into another dance. Daniel leaned close. See, even your cousin ships us. Emily laughed, the sound bubbling free. And for the first time in 6 years, she didn't feel like she was on the outside looking in. She was exactly where she was meant to be. The rest of the reception blurred into a haze of music and laughter, but for Emily, it felt like the world had shifted on its axis. Daniel didn't leave her side. When relatives teased, when old friends gave knowing looks, when Claire shot daggered glances across the room, none of it mattered. For the first time in years, Emily wasn't watching from the sidelines. She was living. Daniel caught her hand whenever the crowd grew too loud, squeezed it whenever her doubts flickered back, and leaned close often enough to make her heart race. It was simple, it was terrifying, it was perfect. Later, after the last toast was given and the bride tossed her bouquet, Emily and Daniel slipped away again, this time not to run from each other, but to steal a few quiet moments before the night ended. They ended up on the terrace, the city lights twinkling beyond the garden walls. Emily leaned against the railing, her shawl draped loosely over her arms. Daniel stood beside her, his jacket unbuttoned, his tie undone, looking more like the boy she remembered than the man in a suit. Feels strange, she said softly. Like we're picking up a story we dropped mid-sentence. He chuckled, resting his elbows on the railing. Then maybe we just keep writing from here. Her lips curved. You make it sound easy. He turned to her, his expression serious now. I don't think it'll always be easy. We've got years of distance between us. We've changed. We'll probably fight. But, his hand found hers again, steady and sure. If you're willing, I want to do the work. I want us. Her chest tightened, but not with fear this time. With something warmer, softer. One step at a time, she echoed. One step at a time, he agreed. They stayed until the music faded and the last guests trickled out. When Daniel walked her to her car, the night air was cool and quiet. He opened the door for her, then hesitated, his hand resting on the frame. So, coffee tomorrow? He asked, a hint of boyish hope in his tone. Emily smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Coffee tomorrow. He leaned down, kissed her softly this time, a promise rather than a plea. When he pulled back, she caught his hand and squeezed it once before slipping into her car. As she drove away, she glanced in the rearview mirror. Daniel stood there, watching, a small smile on his face, as if he already knew the future was theirs to write. And for the first time in a very long time, Emily didn't feel afraid of what came next. She felt ready. 6 months later, the cafe smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, the hum of quiet conversation filling the air. Emily sat by the window, flipping through her notes for work, though she barely registered the words. Because across from her, Daniel was playing with the sleeve of his coffee cup, his expression intent as he listened to her ramble about deadlines and office drama. He wasn't pretending to care, he cared. That was just who he was. 6 months. That's how long it had been since the wedding. 6 months of tentative steps, of awkward laughter, of rediscovering old rhythms and learning new ones. They'd argued, they'd cried, they'd kissed until sunrise. And through it all, neither of them had run. When Emily caught him watching her now, his eyes soft and steady, her heart clenched with something she no longer feared. "What?" she asked, smiling despite herself. "Nothing," he said, shaking his head. Then, quieter, "Just, you're here. That's all I've ever wanted." Her chest warmed, she reached across the table, threading her fingers through his. "I'm not going anywhere," she said simply. And she meant it, because maybe fate had pulled them apart once. But this time, fate had given them another chance, and they weren't about to waste it. She thought the wedding would end in loneliness, but fate had other plans. 6 years apart, one dance brought them back together, and one promise kept them from letting go again. Because when love is written in the stars, no distance, no time, not even heartbreak can erase it. If you believe in second chances and destiny-driven love stories, don't forget to subscribe for more heart-touching tales.